Welcome to This Explainer. So picture this. You're standing in front of a massive bookshelf, or maybe you're just endlessly scrolling through an online bookstore, and you feel completely, utterly overwhelmed. I mean, with thousands of voices telling you what you absolutely must read right now, it is so easy to feel a kind of reading anxiety. We start second-guessing ourselves, right? Wondering, wait, am I doing this right? Am I reading the correct books? Well, you are in the perfect place. Today, we're diving into a classic essay by the legendary author Virginia Woolf. Now, I know she can have a bit of a reputation for being intimidating, but do not worry. We're going to strip away all that old academic jargon and translate her groundbreaking ideas into simple, everyday advice you can actually use. We'll look at how to shake off that modern reading anxiety and fundamentally change how you interact with your very next book. Let's get into it. Okay, we're jumping right in with Woolf's absolute most empowering point. And it sounds a bit crazy, right? The very first piece of advice she gives in an essay that's literally all about reading is essentially to ignore everyone else's advice. It's a brilliant little paradox. What she's really getting at here is that true reading requires total, unapologetic independence. You just can't start a book by trying to follow someone else's rules or expectations. You've got to follow your own instincts. Reading is a deeply personal act, and the minute you try to conform to what some critic says you should be getting out of a story, the magic completely vanishes. In plain English, this just means reading on your own terms. Look, we are so used to letting authorities tell us what's good. And today, those authorities aren't always stuffy teachers in gowns. They're the algorithm, trending lists on Book Talk, or a massive barrage of 5-star Goodreads reviews. When we pick up a book just because it's on a top 100 list, we carry all that heavy baggage straight into the reading experience. We're letting outside voices dictate how we should value a book before we've even opened the cover. Woolf argues that if you bring those outside rules into your personal library, you destroy the very spirit of freedom that makes reading fun in the first place. Your library should be your sanctuary. To make sense of all this, we're going to follow a simple roadmap through 5 steps. 1, the freedom to read. 2, exploring different genres. 3, letting the dust settle. 4, how to judge books. And finally, 5, the ultimate reward. Let's hit the road. Step 1, the freedom to read, or entering the library. It's all about getting into the absolutely right mindset the exact moment you open that book. When you walk into the confusing, chaotic huddle of a library, your very first instinct might be to force your own expectations onto whatever book you pick up. But Woolf famously warns us not to dictate our prejudices to the author. So what does that mean in real life? It means don't open a slow, thoughtful memoir and get mad that there aren't any high-speed car chases. Don't demand a wild fantasy novel to be perfectly factually accurate. Instead, she says you need to become the author's fellow worker and accomplice. Being an accomplice just means playing along with the world the author built, at least at first. If you hang back and judge the book for not being what you wanted right from page 1, you are totally ruining the experience for yourself. Actually, she suggests this really fantastic, practical exercise to help us get into that open, supportive mindset. Want to quickly appreciate a novelist's mastery? Try doing it yourself. I playfully challenge you to try this later today. Just observe a super simple, fleeting event. Maybe it's someone dropping their coffee on the sidewalk, or 2 friends arguing at a bus stop. Now sit down and try translating that exact, simple moment into words on a page. You will so quickly realize how insanely difficult it is to capture. The moment usually just shatters into a clunky, confusing mess of words. Recognizing how incredibly hard the physical act of writing actually is builds empathy. It makes us far more patient and open-minded readers. Which brings us right to step 2, exploring different genres, or basically understanding the vibe. Woolf perfectly translates the complex styles of legendary authors into simple, relatable environments. Think of it like dressing for an occasion. Just like you wouldn't wear a tuxedo on a muddy camping trip, you shouldn't bring the exact same expectations to every single author. If you read a classic adventure by Daniel Defoe, it's like trudging down a plain, open highroad of facts. It's straightforward and it's rugged. But turn to Jane Austen, and suddenly you're sitting in a polite, tightly controlled drawing room. The adventure isn't out in the wilderness anymore. It's in the gossip, the people talking, and the really subtle ways they reveal their true character. You have to mentally adapt to the specific room the author just put you in. Now, what about biographies or memoirs? Woolf has this gorgeous metaphor where she compares reading these to staring into the lighted windows of houses at night while you walk by. It's absolutely perfect for modern people watching. We all have that natural, deeply human, and let's be honest, slightly nosy curiosity about the daily lives, the secrets, and the dramas of other people. We want to know what happens behind closed doors. Biographies light up those windows for us. They scratch that itch, showing us real people succeeding, failing, loving, and just living their messy lives. It's a completely different vibe from a novel, driven purely by our hunger for reality. But, eventually we get tired of facts. We get sick of reading about the messy half-truths of people's lives, and we crave something pure, something intense. That is exactly when we turn to poetry. Woolf explains that the impact of poetry is sudden and direct. She literally calls it a violent shock. While normal prose gives us facts and details that our brains have to slowly chew on and process, poetry is just concentrated emotion. It completely bypasses the brain and hits the heart directly. It immerses us so incredibly fast that we're left unaware of anything else but the raw feeling itself. It's like the ultimate palate cleanser when reality gets too heavy. Okay, step 3, letting the dust settle, also known as the pause. And this is a step almost everyone skips. She clearly divides reading into 2 totally distinct halves. Up until now, we've been doing part 1, taking it all in. We've been in sponge mode, right? Being open-minded, playing along as the accomplice, and receiving the author's impressions without pushing back. But to get the entire pleasure from a book, to really understand it, we have to move to part 2. We have to take off the friend hat, put on the critic's hat, and actively judge it. But here is the catch. You cannot do this immediately. You have to create distance. In wonderfully simple terms, she's begging you to literally take a break. Wait for the dust of reading to settle, go for a walk, pull dead petals from a rose, talk to a friend, or honestly, just sleep on it. Why does the dust need to settle? Well, because when you just finish a book, you're still completely tangled up in the immediate emotions of the ending. Your brain is noisy. If you wait, your psychology naturally filters out all that extra noise. Suddenly, without you even trying, the scattered pieces of the book will float to the top of your mind as one solid, complete shape. And only then are you ready for the final step. Once that dust settles and you can see that complete shape, we move to step 4, how to judge books. Welcome to the courtroom. Woolf explains that your whole attitude has to completely flip here. You are no longer the author's sympathetic friend. You've become their severe judge. You have to take that solid shape of the book in your mind and hold it up against the greatest books ever written. She compares it to architecture. Comparing a book to a book is like comparing a building to a building. Think about it. You wouldn't judge a barn against a cathedral, right? A barn is fantastic for holding hay. A cathedral is built for worship. In the same way, you shouldn't judge a fast, fun pop thriller against a massive historical epic. You have to judge the book based on what it is actually trying to be, but you hold it to the absolute highest standard of that specific category. Now, because this judgment phase is so incredibly demanding, it is extremely tempting to just let professional critics or online reviewers do the heavy lifting for us. I mean, why not just look at a book's star rating online and let the internet consensus tell us if it's good? But Woolf heavily warns against outsourcing your opinion like this. Giving up our own personal taste, giving up our own weird quirks and messy feelings makes the whole act of reading completely pointless. We have to train our own taste. That nervous sensation a book sends through us, whether it absolutely thrills us or completely bores us to tears, that is our primary teacher. We learn through our own feelings, not someone else's 5-star review. Which brings us to our final stop, step 5, the ultimate reward. Why do we even read? Woolf steps back from the library for a second to ask this massive philosophical question about the actual purpose of our hobbies. In today's world, we're constantly surrounded by hustle culture, right? We feel this immense pressure to ensure that every single thing we do is productive, that it helps our careers, acts as a life hack, or reaches some specific end goal. But Woolf challenges this entirely. She asks, are there pursuits that are just good in themselves? Do we always need a tangible reward, or is the simple act of doing the thing enough? She answers her own question with this beautifully funny little thought experiment. She imagines the day of judgment, where all the great conquerors, politicians, and statesmen are lining up to get their heavenly crowns for all their worldly achievements. But when the Almighty sees us, everyday readers, walking up with our books tucked under our arms, he turns to Peter with a sense of playful envy and says, "Look, these need no reward. We have nothing to give them here. They have loved reading." The pure, unqualified joy of reading is a perfect reward all on its own. So, I'll leave you with this. The next time you pick up a book, are you just consuming pages to add another tally to your Goodreads goal, or are you actually daring to read freely? Think about that for a bit. Catch you next time.